Hi guys, why would I say that composition starts at f11? If you mostly shoot with long lenses and wide apertures, you're probably missing out on a lot when it comes to composition. Photographing wide open isolates your subject and rips them out of the scene. Sure, it looks pretty, but it often leads to photos with almost no context. All these potential compositional elements that we are so used to talk about, like lines and curves and shapes, they just get blurred. They are not a part of the image anymore. Of course, it all depends on the purpose of your photograph. Shooting wide open can be useful and sometimes recommended and needed. Depends on the photograph that you're trying to achieve. Sometimes it's the idea, sometimes it's cleaning up a busy scene, I get it. But if you make it a habit of always shooting at low apertures, you are missing out on an entire world of composition. You're missing the chance to create images that are not just pretty, but also interesting. And I know a lot of you have been photographing for years. During these years, you have developed certain habits. And sometimes these habits actually delay your growth. So be honest with yourself. Look at your images, and if they are starting to feel kind of samey or even boring, try this. Go out, set your aperture to f11, and photograph. See how many keepers you're getting. See how many images you like out of what you got. See how comfortable you're working that way. Now, if you find yourself lowering the aperture without even thinking, you got yourself a problem. You have developed a bad habit. You had developed a habit of shooting wide open all the time. Why is that? Let's try and break it down. Photographers who rely heavily on wide apertures like f1.2, f2.8 often struggle with composition. And it's not because they lack of talent, it is because shallow depth of field hides the need to actually compose. And here's what I mean when I say that. Shallow depth of field simply does the work for you. When everything except your subject is blurred, you don't need to think about background, you don't need to think about any other compositional elements. This removes the need to deal with anything. And the opportunity of arranging visual elements thoughtfully is just lost, which leads to the simple fact that you are not arranging your frame with intention. You are just shooting your subject and you just try to capture him in the best way possible, but all the rest is lost. Strong composition very often is a result of interconnecting elements within the frame, creating a story or layering foreground, background, and midground elements. Wide aperture flattens this structure, making storytelling nearly impossible. The image becomes flat, storytelling gone. Wide aperture is like a soft crop in a way. You lose the where and the why of the image. You're left with just the who. And let's be honest, a photo that it's only about the subject with zero environment, that gets boring quite fast. It's like watching a movie where all you see is the actor's face, no background, no environment, no subject. Like, how long you will watch that, right? One of the powers of composition is creating tension. We're not going to get into the exact methods, but you would usually need to work with tone balance and lines to introduce these feelings into the image. But when most of the frame is blurred by shallow depth of field, there is little need to balance elements across the image. Compositional tension, which makes images engaging, simply disappears. And one that personally annoys me a lot is just you become lazy. When you get used to solving problems with blur instead of waiting for the right moment or fixing the frame, you just let the shallow depth of field clean everything for you. And that's exactly why I said, test yourself. Can you handle f11? If not, you probably develop a dependency and this habit of approaching photography in a lazy way. And that habit delays your growth as a photographer. Photography is a lot about visual awareness. Composition and compositional skills, it's like a muscle. If you never had to think about how shapes, lines, and space interact, that muscle just doesn't grow. It remains little and small. Shooting single objects on blurred background is like trying to get abs while drinking beer. It just doesn't always work, right? Shallow depth of field images are easy to read. The eye goes straight to the subject, but that's it. The part that makes the image memorable is actually the exploration, the interaction, or the elements within the frame. Without compositional complexity, there is nothing to explore, and humans, we do love to explore. We enjoy variety, we enjoy complexity. Otherwise, we would still eat plain bread and potatoes every day, or wear one set of clothing. But we don't. We want layers, we want meaning, we want difference. Nothing wrong with simplicity once in a while, but you need to be a well-rounded photographer, not just shooting one thing. So what do you gain from shooting at f11? By shooting at f11, you increase your depth of field, allow multiple elements within the frame to coexist and interact, inviting the viewer to explore the entire image. And ultimately, it challenges your compositional skills and help you develop a more natural, nuances, visual awareness. At f11, everything is in focus, from foreground to background, and that demands careful attention to every element, not just the subject. You will really need to see how much presence each element has and how much presence you want to allocate to each and one of them, and how they interact with each other. With f11, you can't hide weak composition. If there is a pile of garbage in the frame, people will see it. If there is someone wearing an orange vest, people will see him. If there is a line that ugly cuts the frame in half, people will see it. That's it. The blur is not there. You cannot hide things. Unlike with shallow depth of field, f11 doesn't allow you to blur out distractions. You must compose intentionally and pay attention on anything that can weaken your image. You will be using lines, layers, and balance like never before. Shooting f11 trains your visual discipline because f11 reveals every part of the scene. It trains you to become a scene builder instead of just a subject shooter. This leads to stronger storytelling, clearer composition, and better compositional understanding overall. If you force yourself shooting that way for a period of time, you will see growth, undoubtedly. You will understand space better. Space, even empty space, have a meaning in composition. You must now consider your different elements placing, the distance between them, and the edges of the frame, the foreground interest, the middle ground interest, and the background. They're all now collaborative elements rather than isolated zones. Shooting at f11 promotes patience and mindfulness. Now you will wait until the guy with the distracting orange vest leaves the scene, or until all the moving elements find themselves in the right place, and only then you will press the shutter button. Composing at f11 slows you down and forces deeper engagement with the environment you photograph. There is no other choice. You will have to slow down if you want to manage all the elements in the scene. Rushing out, you will just end up having sloppy compositions. Look at photography as painting and adopt the painter's mindset. Just like a painter that is filling the canvas with different objects, similarly, you must design with purpose. The frame becomes the space for narrative and visual harmony, and not just a place for a single isolated object. Shooting at f11 is also a great way to learn the rules. Compositional rules like the rule of thirds, leading lines, and framing becomes easier to see and to understand where they're not blurred out, right? Using f11 is like wearing an optical glasses. Everything was blurred before, but now you can see. You can see from the beginning until the end, and you need to organize it. So no, this is not just another shooting technique. f11 is not about a different way to do exposure. It's about presence. It makes the photographer show up in the image. Because when everything is in focus, you're exposed to your eye, your choices, your intent, and that's where real photography and real growth begins. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and see you next time.